Hello guys! Welcome everybody, and for those who've been around for a while, back to yet again another episode of Mando Monday. This is the series where you guys ask the questions and I, of course, answer them. That can be to do with anything related to Counter-Strike 2, Valve, future upcoming updates to CS2's first operation or anti-cheat, which is now VAC 3, new or possibly returning maps from previous Counter-Strike games, or maybe it's the background or possibly myself. If you have a question you want a shot at being answered in next week's video, leave it down below of this comment section or any other one of my videos saying Ask Mando, then ask your question. It's usually easiest and best for me to find it that way. Today's video, we discuss CS2's new schedule, that being for the game, but also update releases. We go further into detail about the possible port of CS2 on console. We're going to touch on all that alongside a bunch more. Now, today's video sponsor is Skins Monkey. Skins Monkey is a CS2 trading site for all your skin needs. Whether you're choosing to deposit your in-game items or real-life cash, Skins Monkey has it all. If you choose to trade yet need to top up your balance, you can do so by also using my code MANDO for a free $5. Alongside depositing, you get an additional 35% of a deposit bonus. With Skins Monkey's large variety of skins, they also offer daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. If interested, the link will be in the top of the description down below. Now, our first question up here for today's video is from Ben regarding skins and how to check prices. In the past, people who traded skins, at least in my country, they used to check prices of buff, but now it's impossible to create an account and we can't trade them. What other alternative and marketplace are people starting to use as an alternative to buff? What do you think about the future? Is there any marketplace that is rising massively? So good question, brother, and I'm gonna be honest, just right off the rip, I'm not 100% certain. I've been out of the skins game myself for around 2 years, especially with investing inside CS. I really haven't done that in the past couple. As it stands for a marketplace, I'm not 100% certain. I think most people are just spreading themselves out across the board to really any and every marketplace possible that has the best prices at that time. But as it goes for checking prices, let's just say you're doing a price check for somebody or someone's price checking you. Price Empire, which is a website, but they also have a Twitter account. It's a very helpful website for CS. For an example, on screen here, we have a Karambit Safari Mesh. The highest wear you can get is obviously minimal wear, and you can see every single price for every single market that is pretty much available. You can see what it's trending for and so on and so forth. But for the most part, I know a lot of players using CS Float and Buff Market, and ever since the cancellation of Buff, there's also been a lot of players using now trading sites. But take that as you will. That's all I know for now. On to the next question. Now, our second question, or more so comment up here from today's video, is from a commentary from just a couple of weeks back. Mainly, we were talking about Half-Life 3 and the production of it, Valve working on a bunch of other titles, such as TF2, Dota 2, and now even Deadlock. Sun7 Knight said, why can't Valve just finish CS2 and start making other projects? Now, this, in my opinion, has run through my head probably a dozen times within the last couple of weeks. When we started getting new leaks and rumors, but also evidence that Valve is working on Half-Life 3, are putting out summer updates for games like Dota and TF2, working on brand new projects such as Deadlock and have been for the last few years, and have been ramping it up really ever since the beginning of summer of 2024. It's been out for well over a year and a half if you count the limited test. There's almost been next to no progress made, which is pretty crazy to consider. Now, I'm making a happy birthday Counter-Strike video to CSGO in the next couple of days that you guys will see, but in that commentary, I brief over how CS2 almost a year later doesn't have any new content. And I'm not talking about reused maps, modes, and features from CSGO and just being re-released and called new content from Valve. And that at this point for CS2 really isn't a major issue. It's the fact that we don't have anything new, but also the devs aren't even really working on the game to fix the problems that we have. The amount of spots you can get the bomb stuck on practically every map, the amount of spots you can fall through the map, have really illegal boosts, and not to mention every other update that they do release comes out with a brand new broken feature that has to be fixed in something well later that night or possibly later that week in some very off cases. Now, at the end of the day, I think a very hard pill for most Counter-Strike players to actually swallow is just the fact that there's not a whole lot of people working on Counter-Strike 2 despite how much money it makes for Valve. There are other departments and other people that work on different games and they have nothing to do with CS2. The motto at Valve and how you work is you can work on what you want when you want, but obviously there comes with a boatload of problems with that, and that's the fact that games don't get released, they get canned in very early or sometimes late production, and obviously very similar to the theme of your question, that games of how popular and how much money they make doesn't really matter to Valve. And I will end your question on this. Valve devs aren't always the fastest, they sometimes don't deliver in the best way possible, but in the end they somehow and always do come out on top. I mean, you look at CSGO. If there was a scale from 1 to 10 and 5 being middle and 10 being perfect and 1 obviously being the worst, CSGO just 2 to 3 years out from its 10th anniversary was probably on that 5 to 7 scale on a chart. And with how much more popularity, money, and just what CS2 brings in as a whole, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to think that Valve isn't working on it and something is going to come soon. Because Counter-Strike 2 is still Valve's baby, whether you believe that or not. Now, our next question up here is from OG of the channel, that being Logan. And he says, ask Mando, who's your current favorite pro team and who do you think will win the next major? Now, to answer this and to be honest with y'all, I don't really know. And what I mean by that is I don't know because I haven't watched too much pro CS over the last year or so. Really, ever since the Paris major in CSGO in 2023, right before CS2 was released, at least for the limited test, I haven't tuned too much into official CS2 broadcasts, that being on Twitch, YouTube, or even the major in Copenhagen earlier this year. I did time to time, but not enough to know pro teams' backstories, any of the new players, aside from a couple here and there. I've been just more so interested, at least for myself, in just the game, reporting on some of the scandals inside the pro scene, which then I have to look into some players and some teams, like a lot of the match betting scandals that still go on nowadays. I think some other reasons why I haven't been too interested in CS2 pro news as well as official tournaments also goes back to just how CS2 just doesn't feel complete. My favorite team back in CSGO for a very long time was one, Cloud9, then the Copenhagen Flames, which are now disbanded. Gamer Legion's also been on my radar for the last couple of years, but they're obviously not the cream of the crop. But as it stands for who's gonna win the major, honestly, I think G2 has a pretty good chance. FaZe obviously does as well, and also Team Spirit because of Donk. Now, for what I've seen over the last year for CS2 from Donk, he's pretty insane, very good at CS, and could very well possibly be the youngest kid to win an official Counter-Strike major. Let me know what you guys think down below and how you feel about competitive Counter-Strike if you've been watching over the last couple of years, maybe you haven't watched in CSGO, and leave your reasoning as well. Now, our next question up here is from Roog TV, which goes much into detail about returning skins as well as their collections. He says, don't you think that even if they bring back Cobblestone, they will have to change the Cobblestone skins collection, like they did with Train, Vertigo, Mirage? Now, he continues to say that the Op Dragon lore is too unique and too expensive to simply make it possible to get that skin from regular collection drops. Now, this question could be a topic for a video itself, but to quickly go into detail, the first thing I want to point out is Valve does not care about skin prices. Now, you might think in the retrospect of things that it does help the game, which it does. It drives up player count significantly, brings people into the game because of the rare items, but they just really don't care. Time and time again, they have continued to prove that. It's very similar to when Valve released renting skins. If they did care about skin prices, wanted to help them out, they wouldn't have released that feature, but they're really just money hungry. Some other reasons Valve doesn't really care about the prices is because they don't really make a whole lot of money from the expensive skins, because most of those, for the most part, are sold in different marketplaces and not the Steam market. But some instances for maps that I want to mention that have come back to CSGO, or now CS2, that haven't been in the game for a long time, or at least the competitive map pool, right now is Dust 2. Earlier this year in 2024, Valve reintroduced Dust 2 to the map pool, removing Overpass. Overpass had the same collection for 13 years. Dust 2 has seen a couple of iterations and hasn't seen a new collection since 2021. Yet the map was removed, then added back, and it had the same collection from a few years back. But obviously those skins for 2021 aren't as far back as 2014 or 2013 from the Cobblestone collection. Many people within the community think that Valve is not going to reintroduce the same collection, that being for Cobblestone with the Dragon lore, whenever and if that map ever comes back to CS2. But to simply answer your question, I don't think Valve will ever reintroduce the same skins they had 10 years ago, because not to mention that Valve would also have to update those skins, which they don't really like to do. Now, our second to last question up here for today's video is from Devin. And long story short, he's asking if Valve is secretly working on a port of CS2 to console, mainly because Valorant earlier this year already released a console port. It's been pretty successful, it is free, and brings in a boatload and brand new market of players. If that happened to CS2, would that help the game? Now, long story short, if Valve is working on a console port, is no, I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I made a commentary on this around 2 to 3 months ago when Valorant came to console, or at least we got some early teases. I just think a really hard truth for many Counter-Strike players is that Valve just doesn't care that much in depth about the player count or bringing in a brand new market of players, but also the problems that would consist of. The skins market and opening cases would pretty much be non-existent on console because of all the laws that PlayStation and Xbox have, where Valve just wouldn't be able to have that. The Steam market would be non-existent, accounts would most likely not be able to play and also be linked to Steam, versus Valorant, where there's no community market, skins you buy similar to a game like Call of Duty, where they're just linked to your account, you can't sell them, you can't trade them, so on and so forth. And if you look back to Counter-Strike's port to Xbox and PS3 in the early 2000s, you can see that Valve didn't port the game over themselves. In fact, it was Hidden Path Entertainment, and they did a pretty okay job for what was there, but it was the base version of the game and never received an update really after launch. Obviously, if it re-released for console nowadays, it would be free, and I can only assume, one, that cheaters would still probably be rampant, maybe a little better because PlayStation and Microsoft would have to go at it. Maybe they can make an anti-cheat before Valve, even though we have VACnet 3 right now. The game would most likely receive a lot more updates than the original ports did, and obviously the biggest concern I think for Valve's eyes would probably be the community market. Not a whole lot of money would be able to be made, especially if the game is free to play. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think Valve is going to be working on a console port anytime soon. And our last question for today's video is from CS2, and he says, do you think the upcoming major in Shanghai will affect the potential release date of a new operation? And if so, what is your estimated timeframes that an operation is most likely to come out, either before or after the major? Now, to start at the beginning of your question about how if Shanghai will affect the potential release date of an operation, now the simple answer to this is yes. What I mean by that is if an operation is in the works right now and has been for the last year or so, it's going to be released soon and probably not around that time frame that the major is played in. Now, it could be on and live during that tournament, but Valve is not going to be adding a boatload of content anywhere near that. Now, very quickly, my reasoning for this is just looking at the Copenhagen major sale, or just really anything similar. It has happened in the past, but for the most part, Valve never tends to overlap a major sale with capsules, that being 75% off or the base price, with anything else, even if that's a music kit, a case, a sticker capsule, or something as big as an operation. They like to milk everything as long as they can and make as much profit possible. And I really just think the fact of the matter is, with an operation, is one is most likely just not coming out anytime soon. In fact, I'd go as far to say as an operation I don't even think it's going to be on the table for 2025. That's my guesstimate, that is my thinking, just based on what we received so far for CS2 in 2024. Yes, it really sucks and it's not the answer many people want, but just take a look at the base game right now and practically every single matchmaking, if that's Face It or official MM. There's new bugs discovered every week. We still don't have major additions such as Danger Zone or other content from CSGO that is just now lost and missing forgotten features that are also now being re-released as brand new content, and something as big as Danger Zone hasn't been released, and it's such a big part of every operation Operation because of the missions. And if Valve can't release a small update with the music kit correctly where it breaks the game, what do most players think is going to happen when an operation releases when it's 20 to 30 gigabytes of brand new content? The game's going to be broken until the operation ends, and possibly even until a later date. But in reality, I don't think we're going to get an operation anytime soon. If we do, it's going to be long before or after this major. But let me know what you guys think down below of when we're going to receive an operation. What would you like to see? And do you think majors and sales for them affect release dates for something as big as an operation? Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode of Mando Monday. Leave your questions and thoughts for next week's video down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay positive, stay sexy. I'm out, guys. Peace.